In this Tech Talk, I'm speaking with Kevin Pecha, Sales Manager for AZO Food, and we are discussing ingredient automation's role in a labor-strapped industry. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining me today.
How are you doing?
I'm great. So this is a really important topic and one that's top of mind for just about every commercial baker. So let's just start by taking sort of a general look at the overall labor market for the commercial baking industry. So specifically from your perspective, can you talk to me about some of the challenges that you're seeing your customers deal with?
Yeah, some of the biggest issues we're seeing in the industry now, especially with smaller bakers, is getting the labor to show up, the reliability, availability. We're seeing some massive turnover in their workforce, aging. Some of the people are getting too old. In general, just there's sometimes a mismatch between the skill sets and the product quality issues.
So automation is clearly a viable solution for these labor problems. But that said, it's important to remember that automation is not a magic bullet. So in terms of ingredient handling, I think we need to remember that there are immediate solutions and there are long-term solutions. So can you sort of talk to me about what some of those short-term and long-term solutions are that automation can provide?
Sure. In the short term, there's a lot of repetitive motion that some employees still have to do in order to make a batch or make a product. And that repetition can cause a lot of physical damage to some of the workers. Also, because they're doing things manually, sometimes it affects the product quality in the finished goods. And so automation can limit that or minimize the differences between one batch and the next. As far as a long-term solution, we can allow the labor force to become more understanding of the changes in the automation. So you do it in piecemeal fashion so that they grow with it rather than just showing up on a Monday and everything is totally different and they don't know how to do the job anymore.
Do you think when you're easing the workforce into that automation, it's almost a form of professional development, don't you think?
Correct. That's correct. And by making the employee buy in or have some ownership in the fact that he's not having to do physically carrying everything all the time or have to physically weigh everything all the time, it saves him physical effort, but it's his job still, and he takes ownership of that, and he can do that even during the planning phase. And so then they own that, and then they'll want to stay because it builds a certain pride in themselves.
Right. And change can be scary, but when you understand the benefits that come with that change, it kind of is it's a big difference maker. So when you're thinking about how to get to that level of automation, and I'm talking about where you're at the point where it's realistically alleviating these labor pains, what are some of the key factors that a bakery operation has to consider? And then what are some of the pitfalls along the way that bakers need to make sure they can navigate?
Some of the key factors would be to find a vendor or someone that can have a proven track record for doing modernizations or doing upgrades or doing system changes, to look at the entire process from beginning to end. They want to know the end game before they start, and that way they can do it a little at a time so that they can become fully automated without having it become too big a bite at once. Some of the pitfalls, it's financially, it's a little more money, could be a lot more money, depends on what it is you're doing. The mentality shift for the workforce, and that's why it's always good to get their buy-in up front while you're doing it. One of the biggest pitfalls is the legacy equipment. Some of the legacy equipment and some of the equipment that's been out there for a long time may not meet the current codes, current requirements for working, and that has to be upgraded to meet the new regulations. And that can be a real daunting task for small bakers.
Yeah. And I really want to emphasize something that you said, and that is considering how ingredient automation sort of plays a role in the whole operation. So it's important to not just think about the ingredient handling up front, but the impact that it has on the whole operation and the finished product, and looking at the future as well.
It's important to look at the whole process from beginning to end, and what it is that you want to be at the end of the game, and then find a roadmap to get to that point.
Yeah. So Kevin, in the end, what are some of the tangible steps that bakers can take to achieve labor relief through ingredient automation?
Probably the first thing would be to interview several different companies that do this sort of work, and find one that has a proven track record that can show you what they've done in the past, what they can offer in terms of making your system the way you want it to be at the end, and plan the incremental steps in order to get to that final stage without having to either cost the company too much money or have your labor get scared away because you're changing what it is they do every day.
Right. So how does something like, say, master planning come into the picture?
Well, having a master plan up front is what the baker needs to determine. What do I want to be at the end in the future? What kind of a plant do I want to have? How do I want to make my production? How flexible should it be? And that sort of thing. Look at what they currently do and find those pieces that don't match up with their master plan. And then we target those pieces to try to automate in small ways to get to the final result, so that at the end they're happy, but they've been happy all along with the incremental increases in production and quality and things like that.
Yeah, because I what I'm taking away from this conversation is, like we said in the beginning, there's no magic bullet, and part of the reason for that is because there are so many factors to be considered. So it seems like having that master plan helps you understand every individual factor and look at it sort of from several angles, and not just, we have a labor problem, let's use ingredient automation to solve it.
But you don't want to not have a master plan, because then you might implement a system that needs to be removed completely to meet a different goal later. And so
Right.
if you know what your end goal is, then you can work towards that goal increment.
Okay, so the last question that I have, what's the best way for a baker to get in touch with AZO to learn more about automated ingredient handling as part of their labor solution?
Well, in order to call AZO, we have a main number, 901-794-9480. And you can ask for me, or you can ask for any of our salespeople. They'll be more than happy to help you out.
Okay, great. Well, Kevin, thanks so much for taking time to talk to me today about what AZO has to offer to help with labor problems in a commercial bakery.
Thank you very much.